This is DRF, Race of the Day. Hi, everybody. Dan Illman, Mike Beer. The DRF Race of the Day for Tuesday, September the 14th is a good one. Race number 10 at Fort Erie. Let's throw up the field for the second jewel in Canada's Triple Crown. It's the Prince of Wales. $400,000 is the purse. We are going 1 mile and 3/16. You can download free Formulator past performances for this race on the Race of the Day event page at drf.com. Access them and handicap along with us. The unique aspect of the Canadian Triple Crown, Mike, is you've got 3 races, 3 completely different surfaces. You've got the Queen's Plate on Woodbine's Tapeta. You've got this race, the Prince of Wales, on the dirt at Fort Erie. And then you've got the Breeders' Stakes at 1.5 miles on the turf. It makes for a fascinating handicapping puzzle for all 3 races.
Yeah, it does. We have a bunch of the Queen's Plate also ran back, and this goes 6 of the 8 ran in the Queen's Plate. But that's not really the most interesting thing about the race. That I feel like the most interesting thing is none of these horses, save the filly Curlin's Catch, have ever run on dirt before. So it's a big question mark coming into this race.
It is a huge question mark. We will not have a Triple Crown winner in Canada this year. Safe Conduct, the Queen's Plate winner, is not here. Your morning line favorite is the Plate third finisher, H.C. Holiday, despite the fact he's still a maiden. Let's see where he's going to be on your Timeform US pace projector after the opening half mile or so. Timeform US doesn't believe this pace is going to be fast. Hadassah, the 4, has some speed. I guess Ready at Dawn, who looks overmatched, can show some speed. If that one wants to go, I think everyone will let him go. Tidal Forces with blinkers on is very interesting from a pace perspective.
Yeah, I sort of agree with this pace projector too, because it just doesn't feel like there's a ton of speed in this race. So I'd be surprised if they went a fast pace early in here. Maybe that 6 Ready at Dawn is sort of the key to the pace. I don't know. I don't know how competitive that horse can really be in here. But we'll see what he brings to the table. But I did feel like there was a chance this pace was going to be pretty moderate.
The number 1, Avoman, was a stakes winner on turf at 2, won the Plate trial over Tapeta 2 starts back. Now, a lot of horses had some traffic issues in the Queen's Plate. I don't really think Avoman was affected that much. He was in and among horses most of the way. He did get a split turning into the stretch. Maybe he was bounced around a bit. I don't think he was winning with a clean trip, but he ran his usual solid 83. And if you look at your Formulator past performances, you look at this female family, there are many multiple dirt winners, not exactly black type horses, but horses that have won 8-9 times on dirt. I think this horse might handle the main track at Fort Erie.
Yeah, I agree with you. I mean, there isn't, when you start going through these horses that haven't run on dirt before and looking up their pedigrees, there's not a lot to go on. This horse does have several horses in his family who have won on dirt. None of them were really top horses, but they handled the dirt for whatever that's worth. I don't know. This horse looks okay to me. Then I think he's a contender in here. You mentioned his trip in the Queen's Plate, which I, agree with mostly. I don't think he was winning regardless, but he was, sort of in between horses from the top of the stretch down to the wire, never really fully clear. I suppose if you wanted to give him that excuse for that race and say it wasn't a perfect trip, I wouldn't argue too hard with you. I just don't know if his other 2 races were enough for me to want to, get involved with this horse at the morning line prices.
Now, while Avoman was in and among horses, Tidal Forces, the 2, tried to get into the race with a 4 wide bid, wide on the backstretch all the way through the second turn. This horse has a tendency to lug in pretty badly, and I think the blinkers are really going to help this horse. 2 starts back in the Marine, he made the lead. He conceded the lead to Hadassah. He went after those horses on the turn, and then he started laying in on rivals again. I think the blinkers help his speed and maybe help his focus.
Yeah, I agree with that. I feel like he could get a better trip in this race, if nothing else. And obviously, he's going to have to improve in the face of some of his rivals. But he's very lightly raced. And I think there is a chance he could take a step forward here. And, when you just go back through that Queen's Plate replay, I thought he was, maybe one of the horses who was most affected by the way the race was run. His outside post worked against him right from the start. And he was basically 4 wide around the track, made a run at it. Got a little tired in there at the end of the race, but all in all, I thought he ran an okay race that day.
As Mike mentioned in the open, the number 3 Curlin's Catch is the only horse with prior dirt experience, and she likes it. She won the Suncoast Stakes at Tampa Bay Downs in her second start on dirt. She won her first 2 on dirt. She was 5th in the Woodbine Oaks last time out. It was a race that produced a couple of next out winners. Take the folks through her trip that day.
I mean, listen, I feel like it says block top stretch, and she was. I don't know, Dan. I didn't really feel like she had legit trouble in the race, but I guess I could be wrong about that. I just don't know how good this horse is. I respect that she's a dirt winner already, and facing a bunch of horses who just may not like the surface, and maybe that it will be enough for her. When I look at her on paper, I see one race, the Suncoast, that sort of puts her close to contention in here. But even if she just runs that race back, I don't think she's going to beat this field.
Hadassah, the number 4, was 8th in the Queen's Plate. This horse has a tendency to pull hard in the early portion of his races. 2 starts back in the Marine, he could have opted to sit second, but he was just pulling. Eventually cleared the lead after a half mile and paid the price tiring late. And again, pulling in the early portion of the Queen's Plate. I wonder how they're going to ride him in here. Do you let him go and maybe he just gets speed crazy and goes too fast? Do you try to get him in behind horses?
I think they should just put him on the lead this time. They very clearly, in the Queen's Plate, made a concerted effort not to put him on the lead. This horse was under a big pull first time through the stretch in there to sit off the pace. After that, he did get a very good trip sitting right in behind. He moved up to get a shot at it at the top of the stretch. He wasn't good enough. I feel like if they want to win this race, they got to put him on the front and try to wire the field.
Although still a maiden, HC Holiday could very well be the horse to beat. 3rd in the Plate trial, 3rd in the Queen's Plate. Just had a terrible trip in the Queen's Plate. We'll take it through the final quarter mile, and HC Holiday's down on the rail turning into the stretch and isn't behind horses. At this point, going to get to the outside, is going to run on late. Watch the full replay in Formulator. This horse broke very well, was taken all the way back, was buried behind horses inside on the turn. And now you see he's gotten to the outside and he is running at the end of this race.
Yeah, he ran well in here. I agree with everything he said about his trip. He even steadied coming to the stretch there behind that wall of horses. Then he had to regather his momentum. I thought this was a really nice performance for HC Holiday. He's a maiden, technically on paper. He did win a race. He was disqualified from that maiden win back in June. He ran really well that day also. Listen, he's 5-2 on the morning. This is a horse that I liked in the Queen's Plate, and I bet him in the Queen's Plate, Dan. I don't know that I can come back now, switching surfaces at, what may be a really short price and bet him again. But maybe, in fact, he is the horse to beat.
He finished ahead of 5 of these rivals despite the trouble in the Queen's Plate. Ready at Dawn's going to be a big price, deservedly so. This one just broke his maiden, going 7 furlongs in a maiden special weight at Fort Erie. He has a lot to prove. He was absolutely loose on the lead in that race.
Yeah, I mean, it was a big improvement first off the claim. There's no doubt about it. They claimed him for 15, stepped him up into a maiden special weight. He improved his figure a lot. He won by a lot. It was a different surface. It was a shorter race. He has obviously a lot working against him here, but if you're a believer that he's just a different horse now for this trainer, you're going to get a huge price on him here.
Harlan Estate did some good things 2 starts back. He did save ground basically every step of the way and just got up, but there wasn't a ton of pace for him to rally into. He did well, and in the Queen's Plate, he was also down inside, maybe in behind horses. He has to improve a little bit, but who's to say he can't? He's a well-bred horse. I think he has enough pedigree to get the distance.
Yeah, I agree with all that stuff. I mean, he's obviously a contender in here. I didn't, necessarily love his win 2 back, but it was a 9 furlong race. He came through on the inside. I mean, he got a very fortunate bob to win the race. He never even got by the horse on the lead, Dan Samo, but he did get the right bob in there. His Queen's Plate, I guess, his Queen's Plate, he was one of the horses, Dan, who was down inside. It looked like he got bumped at the top of the stretch, and then he raced on. I thought it was an okay try, not that dissimilar from a lot of the other horses back in here that ran in the Queen's Plate, who, maybe if something broke a little bit better for him, he could have been closer. I don't think he was winning. 6-1 seems like a fair price to me.
Keep Grinding has paired up Bayer Thompson his last 2 races, 5th in the Queen's Plate after finishing 2nd in the Marine. What I find most interesting is that Tino Attard shipped this horse to Fort Erie for a workout a week ago, and he seemed to like the track. 5 furlongs in a bullet 59 and change, maybe an indicator that dirt will be just fine for him.
Yeah, he's another one who's got some dirt performance in his pedigree. These aren't the horses that have won on the surface aren't great horses, but they have handled dirt and run pretty well on it. So I guess that suggests that this horse could handle it too. I guess we'll see, Dan. He was one of the horses in here exiting the Queen's Plate, and I get that he's a real top contender in here. He's going to be one of the favorites in the race. I just don't love his races. I don't love, and maybe it'll be a totally different situation for him on dirt, but I don't love the way he finishes his races on synthetic. So if he's going to be one of the favorites here, I'm going to bet somebody else.
Top pick time for the Prince of Wales. Mike, you're going with a 15-1 shot. Tidal Forces, blinkers on, very, very wide in the Queen's Plate, and just a horse that could certainly take a step forward with the blinkers. Again, I think he's a little bit green. I think it'll help him out.
Yeah, and I think he's one of the ones in here, Dan, who I just felt like he was maybe less exposed than some of the others, too. He's still lightly raced. I thought he ran deceptively well last time with a wide trip. I think this horse could be okay. I'm happy to give him a shot in here at a price and what feels like a wide open race to me.
I'm hoping that Avoman has enough dirt in his pedigree. He does have the siblings that have won on dirt. I think it's enough. I think the distance is okay. Enough trouble in the Queen's Plate where you might want to play him back. I don't think it really hurt him, but he was in between horses. Curious to see what we get from him. Hope he drifts a little bit off that 7-2. That seems light. 1528 for me, 2547 for Mike. It's the Tuesday race of the day, the prestigious Prince of Wales at Fort Erie. Good luck.